in the 1840s, Michigan was a wild and a woolly place. We didn't get a whole lot of people coming to Michigan at first because they heard that Michigan was dark and swampy and full of wild Indians. And that was the gospel truth about Michigan.
And lots of mosquitoes.
Right. And it was mostly dark because Michigan was covered with this beautiful primeval pine forest. And it made it easy to walk around through the trees because no sunlight ever came through and penetrated the greenery, the cover. And so nothing grew on the forest floor. It was just pine needles, very easy to get about, unless, of course, you wanted to pull a wagon or something like that through. And also, Michigan is very swampy. I mean, we're the water wonderland. And all this stuff, as charming as it might seem, was a real problem to our early pioneer settlers who had to try and clear these trees out of the way to let in a little sunlight to try and grow some crops so they could settle here. Also, the mosquitoes were probably one of the big three problems that the settlers had. When they worked outside, they had to wear scarves over their faces so they wouldn't inhale mosquitoes. And consequently, with that kind of infestation, it brought a lot of sickness. Pioneer people were sick all the time, and one of the things they were sick with was malaria. And once you get it, you know, you might feel a little better, but it never quite goes away. It always keeps coming back. And so it doesn't paint a very rosy picture for getting up and leaving your nice established farm and your family and trying to go and pioneer in Michigan. But what brought a lot of people here was land was $1.25 an acre.
It was cheap.
Such a deal. Mm-hmm. And everybody wanted to come and get a piece for themselves.
And at that point, along comes, just between you and me, my favorite woman of all. Her name is Mary Wiltse 𝐀𝐫𝐭𝐢𝐬𝐭s. In 1853, Mary was living in New York State with her husband, David. And Mary also liked to write in her diaries, and this information came straight from Mary's heart when she said that David was a handsome man, and he was quite the romantic at that, and she loved him very much. They had 8 children together, and one day David said, "Mary, land is cheap in Michigan, and I would like to go west. If I went and settled there, would you come and live with me?" And Mary said, "Yeah, I'll come and live with you, David." So off he went here to Michigan, where he found some land about 8 miles west of Lansing, and telegrammed Mary and says, "Hey, come and live with me. I've got a place for us in Lansing." So that left Mary at home to pack up 8 kids, sell off farm animals, and load it all up on a wagon and trudge off to Michigan. Her sister and their cousins decided to come along with them. There were 27 people in all to make this trip. They came across Lake Erie to Detroit and then on to Lansing, where David met them. And now you remember the woods are pretty thick here, and David was supposed to have taken them back through the woods to their homestead, and according to the diary, he hadn't quite pulled a wagon through there yet, so it took them a while as they trudged their way through the forest to get back to this land that David was to have prepared for them. And it was in May, and there were a lot of bugs and mosquitoes and screaming babies, and they got back to this land, and to use a modern-day vernacular, David freaked out. He hadn't prepared for these 27 people, and all he had was a foundation and one wall, and threw $2 in Mary's hand and says, "Here's enough money for a cow and a pig," and off he went. And left her there for 2 years to have to fend for herself and clear land in days when you didn't go to the grocery store, when you needed things to feed babies with. Mary was a pretty tough cookie, and I guess that's the thing that I resonate most with about Mary. And also in her diaries, David did come back, and they proceeded to live together for about the next 15 to 20 years, when one day David said to Mary, "Mary, I think it's time we move to Grayling." Mary said, "David, I think it's time that you move to Grayling." And he did, and left her again. And this is the story of Mary Wiltse 𝐀𝐫𝐭𝐢𝐬𝐭s. My name is Mary Wiltse 𝐀𝐫𝐭𝐢𝐬𝐿, I come from New York State. My husband Robert. My name is Mary Wiltse 𝐀𝐫𝐿, I come from New York State. My husband David got the westward fever. I love this song. And when you make mistakes, you're supposed to just keep right on singing, and so we're going to do it one more time. Mary, where are you? Thank you. My name is Mary Wiltse Moon. I come from New York State. My husband got the westward fever. Couldn't stand to wait, so he went over west to Michigan back in 1853. And the packing of this New York farm was then left up to me. My sister and my cousin and all our family, 27 people crossing over on Lake Erie to Detroit and then to Lansing on the 1st of May. So this will be my new home, was all that I could say. Come, won't you go to Michigan, Oh, I hear it's paradise from the stories that they tell. Come, won't you go to Michigan, Oh, Michigan, I hope and pray that I like you well. Now to the hard part. We loaded up our wagon and I walked along the side with all our children and our goods. There was no place left for me to ride, and there were no roads in through the woods, not even any track. I walked 8 long miles from Lansing, and I swore I'd never walk back. So we pulled together, made the best of what was then to be, with my 8 living children, and my youngest boy was 3. And after dark, as the children slept, I'd be out clearing land. You know, you only slept in those old days when you could no longer stand. Come, won't you go to Michigan, Oh, so this is paradise. Well, I guess I couldn't tell. Come, won't you go to Michigan, Oh, Michigan, I hope and pray that I like you well. We built a larger cabin and a barn for our new cows. We planted orchards and our crops with oxen and with plows. When times were hard, sometimes we did the best we could. We carved ourselves a home and farm where once was only woods. Now I am an old lady and I look out on this land, and everything I see was made by God or by my hands. I'm standing at the doorway and I view it all with pride, and I know that every step I took, God was walking by my side. And the rising of the moon just means the coming of the dawn, and perhaps my children's children will live here when I am dead and gone, and they'll see the green of the spring and the glory of the fall. And I hope and pray that they will see the wonder of it all. Come, won't you go to Michigan, This has been my paradise, and I have lived to tell. Come, won't you go to Michigan, Michigan, I guess it's true, I've come to love you well. Thank you.